This is the Management 301 team case study for Craig Dilbeck and Adam Kopper. We're covering the Charles Schwab Corporation. They're a financial services provider with over 17,000 employees, and this year they were ranked number 330 on the Fortune 500. This is the agenda for our presentation. We're going to start by analyzing Charles Schwab using Porter's 5 forces model. From there, we're going to identify a major managerial problem within the company. Next, we're going to explore 5 potential solutions to that problem. Once we've explored the solutions, we'll choose just one, and we'll talk about the resources needed to implement that solution, as well as the control process needed to ensure that that solution is successful.
Well, let's go ahead and get started here. We'll analyze Charles Schwab through Porter's 5 forces model. Porter's 5 forces was developed by Harvard scholar Michael Porter, which includes analysis by viewing the competition from industry rivals, the threat of new entrants into the industry, the bargaining power of suppliers, as well as the bargaining powers of consumers, and the threat of substitute products. Competition from industry rivals impacts Charles Schwab on a regular basis. Charles Schwab is a financial service industry leader, and they face intense competition from their industry rivals. In fact, most consumers can turn on a television set and find out who the top competition for Charles Schwab is. A competition from industry rivals is the most significant of Porter's 5 forces for Charles Schwab. The industry rivals include T. Rowe Price, Vanguard, Ameritrade, and Fidelity. These are the primary financial service rivals currently. Though the primary competitors are narrow in scope, consumers have tremendous flexibility to select a competitor easily who offers similar service. Another significant challenge with competitors is that a lot of them are already Fortune 500 companies or near the top of the list. In addition to the competitive threats that Charles Schwab faces, there's also the minimal threat of new entrants into the industry. The threat of a new entrant is a significant force within the financial services industry, although it's relatively small. There are significant obstacles for a new entrant. The primary obstacles would be the massive amount of capital that's required, also the brand identity to gain consumer confidence, and also the challenges with government regulations, both at the state level and the federal level, that applies to all banking operations. The most significant threat from outside the industry would likely be Amazon or Google. They consistently explore new markets. The barrier for entry for financial services is tremendous. However, both Amazon and Google have the capital and also the brand identity to become a competitor with Charles Schwab. Both Amazon and Alphabet, they seem to be pursuing different opportunities across a variety of platforms to compete on the national stage. Additionally, both firms bring cutting-edge technology and a familiarity with the millennial generation. Of Porter's 5 forces, the bargaining power of suppliers is most likely least impactful for Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab relies heavily on 2 suppliers, the consumers who make deposits and the labor force. Depositors, they are the primary source of capital, and employees, they get the job done. In addition to supplier bargaining powers, Charles Schwab also faces the bargaining powers of the consumers themselves. Second to competition, consumers possess the most significant bargaining power, but only in mass. Charles Schwab easily absorbs the departure of individual accounts. However, as an aggregate, consumers carry tremendous power. Simply, Charles Schwab cannot weather a sizable exodus of consumers. Last of Porter's 5 forces model is the threat of substitute products. Charles Schwab primarily services consumers through wealth creation, wealth transfer, and wealth preservation. Wealth creation is challenging for Charles Schwab, as entrepreneurship is likely the best substitute for wealth creation. Additionally, insurance companies provide strong substitutes for wealth transfer, and similarly, local banks are able to cater to consumers concerned with wealth preservation. The big challenge for Charles Schwab is to set them apart in the industry with competitive products that consumers choose first before looking at an alternative such as entrepreneurship, an insurance company, or looking at their local bank.
This is the major managerial problem that we've identified. These 3 points you see all basically boil down to the company's overall goals not being aligned with the goals that it's setting for its employees. So to be more specific, what's happening is that the various account managers are being graded on efficiency. Their goals and objectives are based on things like wrap time, which is how long a phone call takes, wait time, which is the time between calls, and availability, which is time spent at their desk. Now these goals are being met and customer satisfaction is up, but as a result of this focus on efficiency, things like lead generation are dropping and less deposits are being made. So we believe that goals should be set using the SMART formula. And as far as their efficiency goals, they are specific, they're measurable, they're certainly relevant as well as achievable and time bound. However, if we go back to relevant, that's where this starts to fall apart a little bit. Of course, customer satisfaction and efficiency are relevant things, but they're not perfectly relevant to the company's overall goals, and that's where this managerial problem arises. Let's get into the 5 potential solutions for our problem. Our first potential solution is performance tracking. As important as performance tracking is, a lot of companies don't have the measures, or at least effective measures, in place to track employee performance. With recent technology, this has gotten a lot easier to do. There are apps such as Google Streak, Basecamp, DeskTime, and Salesforce which help track employee performance. What tracking employee performance would do in this case would ensure that work gets done, document issues for performance reviews, and can help identify areas that need improvement. And that last point is really key to using this as a solution for our problems, identifying those areas that do need improvement, making management aware of them, and get them on track to create solutions. Our next potential solution that we're going to look at is training. Now, most companies have a training program to one degree or another. Some are certainly very basic and some are certainly quite extensive. And training does 2 basic things. 1, it can teach new knowledge and skills, and 2, it reinforces what the employee already knows or has been trained to do. Looking at our source here, according to them, there's a list of reasons that employees don't follow the specified procedures that a company has in place. One reason is they don't know the procedure existed, they were not trained in the procedure, they did not understand the procedure, they couldn't find the procedure was too long, they didn't read the procedure because they thought they remembered how to do it, they found a better way to do the procedure in their opinion and applied that way. They were told to skip the procedure and go from memory, or to just figure it out on their own, or the procedure was poorly written and hard to follow. Now, all these issues can be remedied by training, and our idea here for training to solve the problem is that once everyone was properly trained, it would clarify the objectives and goals of the organization. Our next potential solution is management coaching. Management coaching is becoming increasingly popular in the corporate world, and according to our source, what management coaching is, it's a tool with the aim of contributing to and assisting in the development of strategies that favor the personal and professional growth of managers, providing them with permanent transformative learning in one or more of their visible behaviors, which in turn affects the behavior and performance of their direct collaborators. So there are a few factors that go into management coaching. Factors associated with the coach are the ability to transmit and generate trust in the coachee, competence in management communication skills, commitment to the coachee and to the firm, a deep knowledge of human nature. Factors associated with the behavior of the coachee, they need to be motivated to learn and change, take responsibility for their own learning process and self-development, and as well be committed to the process. So some factors that pertain to the relationship between the coach and the coachee: there needs to be confidentiality, trust, empathy, authenticity, and unconditional mutual respect. Factors corresponding to the coaching process are the importance of feedback to the coachee, a focus on fixing and attaining objectives, and a continual challenge through new actions. Finally, the factors that pertain to the organizational context in which this coaching unfolds. Again, is confidentiality, support and commitment from top management, and from the other managers through the process. So the idea here with management coaching is to basically make the managers better at what they do, more easily to help identify and correct managerial problems themselves at their own level. The next potential solution we're going to talk about is also becoming increasingly popular in the corporate world, and that is, of course, team building. Now, team building activities can range from simple classroom exercises to more complex and dynamic reality-based experiences, as you see taking place in the picture here. According to our source for this slide, ultimately, beyond creating an effective and cohesive team, team building is about interventions that are critical to detect and resolve issues. These issues include the interpersonal conflicts within a team, the inappropriate use of resources, role ambiguity, and the inability of team members to meet stakeholders' expectations. Their research also found that the involvement of employees in team allocation turned out to produce several positive effects on teamwork dynamics, including the enhancement of team climate, and this contributed to an increase in employees' organizational commitment, the promotion of sound interpersonal relationships between team members, and these relationships are, of course, crucial to accomplish organizational tasks, the strengthening of participativeness, trust, and safety among employees, which are fundamental ingredients of the recipe for better organizational performance, and the final positive effect was a greater task orientation. This is produced by the involvement of employees in arranging a tailored team to meet the specific needs of customers. So what we're looking for team building to do as a solution to our problem here is to build, again, a stronger, more confident team and make that team more able to identify and solve the problems that we've identified. The final solution we're going to take a look at here is an incentive program. Such a program would obviously provide an extra incentive for employees to accomplish the organization's goals. Employee incentive programs are used frequently, and studies on these programs have found that they do influence employee behavior. These programs can help companies improve organizational performance measures that are both short-term, as in current sales or productivity, and long-term in things such as employee engagement, job satisfaction, and retention. The article we looked at for this slide compared the merits of awarding points as an incentive versus cash versus gift cards. And ultimately it came down to points being the most effective reward system. Employees can save up these points, which will encourage them to work harder to achieve additional rewards that they can then redeem at a later date for a larger purchase. Because these points are maintained in a separate account from other compensation, it's easy to budget, monitor, and track these rewards separately from the normal financial compensation through paychecks. What this program would do ultimately to solve our problem would incentivize employees to meet targets, objectives, and goals set by the company. Out of the 5 potential solutions we just explored, our team felt that the incentive program would be the most relevant and effective solution. The reason for that is, if you go back to our original managerial problem, was that the targets, objectives, and goals of the employees were not aligned with those targets, objectives, and goals of the organization as a whole. So we felt that the best way to get those things aligned would be to incentivize the employees to meet the targets, goals, and objectives that the organization wanted them to meet. And by restructuring that and incentivizing it, we believe that we'd see an immediate increase in performance. Now let's talk about the resources we need to implement our solution. And we're going to need two basic resources for this. The first resource being time, and the second resource being money. Now, first let's talk about the time. The time we need is basically the time needed to set up this program. There's going to be a lot of calculations involved, basically figuring out how many points you'd be awarded for meeting what goals, how the goals are going to be specifically tracked. Is it percentages? Is it numbers? Is it, whatever the case is? And basically tying everything together and laying the program out where it makes sense for the company, makes sense for the employees, and where it's easy to understand. So basically building this incentive program from scratch will take some time, and it needs to be determined, of course. Is an outside company going to be brought in to set this up? Are people going to work late? Is a new employee going to need to be brought on to set this up? All this time is going to be needed to determine those questions. And the second resource, of course, is money. This is an incentive program, and the employees are being awarded points that then turn into cash. So the cash obviously needs to be allocated, made available. What account the cash comes from needs to be determined. That needs to be hashed out. But of course, the cash has to be available in order for this program to work. If someone participates and hits all their goals and does what they need to do, and the cash isn't there, then the program is going to be a failure. Now we come to our four-step control process. Since we have identified our problem, worked out a solution, and now have the resources needed to implement it, we'll need to obviously monitor the results. New objectives and standards will be laid out, and not only will employees be measured on meeting these new objectives and standards, but the incentive program will be measured as well. Again, we're going to use a SMART formula to help us track this progress. Obviously, the goals and objectives must be specific, measurable, and this time the employee goals should be perfectly relevant to the company's goals. We also need to make sure that the goals are achievable and that the rewards offered in the incentive program are achievable. So for example, if account manager Jane Doe hits all of her goals for 5 years and finally saves up enough points to buy a television, the program is probably not going to be very effective. On the other hand, if account manager Jane Doe works hard for 5 days and meets all her goals and saves up enough points for a television, the program probably needs to be adjusted then as well. And lastly, the goals have to be, of course, time bound. As the new incentive program is implemented, a timetable of goal accomplishment and periodic reviews must be maintained. In conclusion, the major managerial problem that we identified within the company was one of goals not being aligned, shifting performance targets, and conflicting objectives. And of course, these objectives were starting to affect the company's bottom line with lower deposit rates and new leads generated. We had 5 proposed solutions to this problem, and the first was performance tracking. And by tracking employee performance using specific metrics, it would bring to light this problem and allow it to be solved. The second proposed solution was training, and with better trained employees, these employees would perform better, be able to identify problems better and solve them on their own. Third potential solution was manager coaching, and manager coaching would of course make the managers better and more effective and better able to identify this problem and solve it on their own. Fourth solution was team building, and with team building what we were looking to do was build a tighter, more cohesive team that could work together better, identify problems better, and create solutions. And final was the incentive program, and this is the program that we ended up going with. This would provide incentives for employees to meet these new, more relevant company goals. And by doing this, we motivate the employees, show them that this new program and direction was serious, and get them aligned and participating with it, and just bring better effort out of the employees. Our 4-step control process was basically to monitor those new objectives, monitor their performance, and basically make sure that the incentive program was effective and realistic. And of course, if any adjustments were made, we would then make them.